Sorry about that. We also had a little thing where upgraded hopefully our foyer ability to stream there, so we're trying to figure that out as well. So thank you for your patience, which I think hopefully good there. Okay, so we're wrapping up the last part of this before we move into the greatness of Melchizedek, and we were talking about him now that our author has determined he's going to talk about him anyway after telling them they couldn't handle it. So he's gone ahead and began discussing that. He's discussing Melchizedek, his name, King of Righteousness and King of Peace. Now, what part, King of Righteousness, when the title, where does that come from in the name that he has? The righteousness comes from what part of his name and title? The etymology words. Is attached to what part of his name and title? Priest. It's a little bit of a trick question. It's tied to Melchizedek. That means King of Righteousness. He's also called the King of Peace, or King of Salem, and that also means King of Peace, as Salem means peace. So here we have this idea that he is King of Righteousness. That's attached to Melchizedek. He's called King of Salem, so King of Righteousness, King of Peace. Again, a striking resemblance in the way that it's set up for him to be a type of Christ. The things about him that would point to Christ, or if in fact this is a Christophany, this is what we were debating when the power was, last week. You guys remember that? Okay. So, and I was hoping that'd be on the live stream, but that's obviously where it cut off. So I was hoping we'd get a little bit of the lights flickering in there. I went back to check it. So either way, we're good. I wouldn't argue with you too much because either position's just fine. If you think it's this Melchizedek's a Christophany, which again is an appearing of God manifesting, particularly the person of the Godhead, the Logos, the pre-incarnate Christ, manifesting here as the King of Salem, this Melchizedek, or if it was a real person who's going to represent, typologically speaking, things that would happen in and with Jesus. Either one, you're fine. Neither one's going to take us in a place. As I've told you, I'm leaning more and more that this was a Christophany. So, Christ coming to establish a priesthood that he would fulfill when he came incarnate. So that's a pretty neat. That's either way though, we're good. So and obviously that's the whole point of all this is a priesthood. So his ancestry, as to without family, we were talking about that, without father and mother, and all. That's kind of where we were leaving off, and we discussed that. So Smith's contention is that the reason he doesn't have that it says without father and mother and this sort of thing is because there's just no record of it. There's no genealogical record. But surely he's saying that he is a human who was with father and mother. There's just no record of it. And then also there's no record of anything after him either, genealogical record of any children, which is also interesting. All right, so as to his service, this is where I have us. So this is referencing chapter 7, verse 3, without father, without mother, without genealogy. Again, just interesting. Having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like the Son of God, he abides a priest perpetually. So now we have this concept that Melchizedek, this does not mean, Smith says, that Melchizedek was never born and never died. The point is that the record says nothing about his birth and death. So again, no records. So no record of mom and dad, no record of his life. There's just no record, so that's what this means. He appeared on the stage of history, then disappeared. There was nothing out of the ordinary about either his birth or his death. seems like this fellow's pretty important. The whole point of this comparison is that Melchizedek's greater than who? Abraham. Abraham's pretty important. Melchizedek's greater than Abraham because, again, we go back to this verse, the one who blesses is the greater than the one who receives the blessing. So what's that, verse 9? 7. But without any dispute, the lesser is blessed by the greater. So he's great. But there's nothing else. There's nothing nowhere about this guy. Just seems fishy. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So it's in Canaan. And so this is before. Our timeline here is, we got to remember the timeline. So this is early. Time of Abraham. Abraham comes down. He's told to leave. He comes down to this area where Canaan is. He's told to settle there. And as he's conquering, he had this battle with the 5 kings, right? And so he conquers there and does well. And he gathers up all the spoils. And then he pays a tithe to Melchizedek. So we're talking about the timeline here it's going to be a few centuries, quite a few centuries, before Jacob and his 12 sons go into captivity and then come out of captivity and then eventually try to get to this place. So that would become Jerusalem eventually in the Promised Land. So, which was Canaan. So yeah, real place. So now let's talk about his prophetic significance. Now clearly we can say that there's prophetic significance. This idea of typology. So Moses said eventually that there'll be a prophet like me. And who's that? Who would be the prophet like Moses? Jesus. Yeah, there's tons of things in the Old Testament that point to Jesus, his person or work. And this typological significance of things that would happen in the church. So when we talk about the tabernacle, there's things that are symbolic of things that would manifest in the church, and then there's just in the people that we come across that we see this typological prophetic significance. So the likeness is in the picture drawn in Genesis, not in the man himself. As far as the record is concerned, Melchizedek's priesthood was permanent. This is why he is viewed as a type or picture of Christ. Now the reference here is to Christ in his divine person. The pre-existent Son of God was and remains eternal. Of course, when he came in the flesh, he was born in Bethlehem and died on the cross. This idea of being made light indicates that he remains what he is made. So the genealogies of Jesus in Matthew and Luke trace him back through King David, not Aaron. He had no priestly ancestors. So his tribe was Judah, not Levi. So the way in which the Scripture opens and quickly closes the curtains on the life of Melchizedek is God's way of indicating that he was a type or preview of the Son of God. Or was him, actually. So his priesthood, though, is enduring, and that's the key thing. That's the key aspect of this whole thing, is that there was a priesthood that would be established, that would be eternal. Because Christ's high priesthood needs to be eternal, right? Yeah, so that's kind of where we're headed with this. So the term here, without interruption, was used to refer to a dynasty that would never fail to have an heir to rule. Now, how does Melchizedek remain a priest in perpetuity? How's that possible? Is it because of him? Is it Melchizedek's priesthood? Is it because of him that it's a perpetual priesthood? Was it in him that it's that way, or was it something else? It's because of Christ and the fulfillment of Christ. So what he established, what he came in, and he had this priest-king concept of where one that was appointed by God, that was not of the Levitical line or the Aaronic line. Now we've got something that Christ can follow in those footsteps. And so that's what we have here. So how does Melchizedek remain a priest? Well, Melchizedek's priesthood is perpetuated in Jesus, not in himself. So if you recall, to put it another way, Jesus carried forward the priesthood of Melchizedek, and that's what makes it perpetual. Now, the text does not say that Melchizedek personally continues to function as priest as postulated by certain cultists in church history. So if you recall, I told you some people take this idea that Melchizedek's priesthood goes on and on because of him, and they take it too far. That's what happened. Certain groups did this. So the identity of Melchizedek has been the subject of much debate over the centuries. Now, listen to this. In rabbinic literature, Melchizedek was said to be from the lineage of Shem. Who's Shem? Okay. For a minute, I thought he was one of the Stooges. Larry, Curly, Moe. What was the third guy's name? Fourth guy? Was it Shem? Yeah. Shemp? With a P? Yeah, two different guys. All right. So in rabbinic literature, Melchizedek was said to be from the lineage of Shem, or even Shem himself. Many early Christians believed that Melchizedek was a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. I'm leaning that way, but so far that's not where it's gone off the rails. There's a fellow, and this is an interesting name. His name was Mark the Hermit. Mark the Hermit of the 5th century. So that's in the 400s. There was another guy named Theodotus the banker. So we got a hermit and a banker. Walk into a bar. Never mind. And his sect known as the Melchizedekians or the Athenegani. So there became a group of people who really almost worship Melchizedek, whose descendants are the modern-day Roma gypsies. All right. They regarded Melchizedek as a great heavenly power and as a son of God, superior to Jesus. So that's a problem, right? Yeah, so, I mean, that pulls us towards things that sound familiar. This rings in my ear like Mormonism. This rings in my ear like Jehovah's Witnesses and what they say about Jesus, that there are individuals greater than him. Now, traditional Christian interpretation understands Melchizedek to be a historical figure and a type of Christ. So the two legitimate camps, we've already established this, is real person who is a type of Christ or a pre-incarnate manifestation, but not someone who is a son of God who's greater than Jesus. There's no other biblical evidence for that. That's taking things way too far. But some did. Okay, so that's as to his enduring priesthood. So now let's speak of the greatness of Melchizedek. So this picks up in verse 4. Now observe how great this man was, to whom Abraham the patriarch gave a tenth of the choicest spoils. Now again, let's remind ourselves why is he trying to make the point that Melchizedek's greater than Abraham? That's okay. Technology's great when it works. AI is going to take over the world.
Is it because Abraham's offering sacrifices?
Okay, so that's the way that's the point he's making. The question was, why is there this trouble to say that Melchizedek's greater than Abraham? What's the whole point? What's he trying to set up here? And again, remember, he was telling these people. He wanted to explain this to them if they felt like this was deep into the pool stuff. And he's like, I don't know if you guys can handle this yet, but he went ahead and did it. So what's the ultimate point?
The ultimate point was that Jesus would be a priest like Melchizedek, and from the tribe of Judah versus, I believe, the Levitical tribe. So he was, trying to...
How does that play to Abraham, though? Of the Jews.
He was the one that promised all nations. He was the one that the promise was given to
Promise, the father of, yeah. So what is this passage of Scripture? He links it to a certain individual. there's a certain individual pertaining to Abraham that he's setting up. So he's represented by Abraham, but Abraham has nothing to do with the priesthood because I'm going to say this fancy, there ain't no priesthood yet. Right? Because that's going to happen 400 or 500 years down the road. Who? So who's using Abraham? Who's he really getting after here? The name's in the passage. Lot? No. Who? Sons of Levi? Or Levi himself? He's setting up Levi, right? Right? Remember that? So he's saying Abraham and Levi is represented. Again, awkward. Because he's going to be great-grandpa. Abraham's going to be great-grandpa to, right? Am I saying that right? So Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Levi, great-grandpa? Great? Sounds great. Isaac, Jacob, Levi. One above that would be great. Isaac's great-grandpa. Yeah, so the verse here that tells us this, and they're setting up Levi versus Melchizedek, is that Levi is represented in Abraham because he's there potentially. The word it uses is in verse 10. Remember awkward? For he was still in the loins of his father who met him, right? When Melchizedek met him. So he's setting up, and I think this should be a word, Melchizedekian versus Levitical. In Levitical's Levi is not even around yet, but God knows. And so this is this is setting up that argument there. And so this is a greater priesthood because the whole idea is you want to go back to Judaism, and the priesthood there is represented by Levi, Aaron. And so he's saying that's not going to get you anywhere because Christ, his priesthood is greater, and it's greater because of what was established, what began with Melchizedek. So the Melchizedekian priesthood is greater than the Levitical. So that's the point that he's setting up here. That's the contrast. So here's how he does it. So we see this greatness of Melchizedek. He received a tithe. Now the word implies attentive contemplation. Our writer thus invites the readers to look long and attentively at the point he's about to make. So from what Abraham did, we may judge that the patriarch considered Melchizedek great, important person. And so he not only gave Melchizedek, Abraham, the tithe of the spoils, he made sure the priest received his portion from the chief, or the best of the spoils. So, there's it's just that concept that we can trace that all the way back. The idea of giving your best in some form or fashion. If Melchizedek is a priest of the Most High and we're giving the best, where does that concept find its roots? Where's the first time that idea shows up on the scene? Yeah, with Cain and Abel, right? So Cain and Abel, I think we have the idea, it wasn't the fact that Cain offered veggies and Abel offered a blood sacrifice. That wasn't the problem, I don't think. Because we have indication in the text that Abel offered the firstlings of his flock, and it seems like from the language that Cain just offered whatever of the vegetation of the ground. It seems like there wasn't the regard for giving the first or the best, and that's where we have this heart issue, and that's an important thing to think about here. So here we see that Melchizedek received from Abraham the chief of the spoils. Again, I don't understand how spoils is a good thing. That makes no sense.
Is that the prophecy where Abraham took from the 5 kings that he destroyed? I mean,
Yes.
That would be.
Yeah.
The spoils could be gold, could be silver.
Oh yeah, it could be all kinds of stuff. Livestock, whatever they took, anything and everything. Could have been servants. I mean, it could have been all the above. And he's giving that the best of it. So this detail must have been preserved by oral tradition. The title, the patriarch, stands last in the Greek sense to stress the greatness of Abraham. His greatness enhanced the greatness of the priest he recognized with the best of the spoils. So it wasn't just anybody who's paying this tithe, who's making this offering. This is the great Abraham. And there's someone even greater than him to whom he's offering. That's the point. Is that there's a greater than even Abraham. And again, how do Jews regard Abraham? Present-day Jews, AD 62, 63, how do they regard Abraham? Yeah, big dog, right? I mean, if you'd say, this would be fun. So if we have, I think we can do this. If we have the Mount Rushmore of Jews, those who they would look to as being the four, surely there'd be Abraham, and who else? Moses, I think, would be there. Jacob, maybe. I think David would be on there. King David, maybe Abraham, Moses, and maybe, I don't know. What do you guys think about maybe Elijah? Because when we talk about Elijah and representing the prophets, like who's at the Mount Transfiguration? Moses and Elijah. And then King David, where's he in the scope of things as far as Jews? Big deal? Yeah, and I'd say Abraham. I'd say those four. I'd say those four in their mind. And it's interesting that all four of those have been brought to the table here in these first 7 chapters.
Did you mention Moses?
Yo, certainly. Yeah, Moses, Elijah, Abraham, David. I think though, if you were to ask, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe there's somebody, maybe it would be Jacob or maybe someone else. But I think, that'd be fun to think and be interesting to see. All right, so now we have this question of authority. And they indeed of the sons of Levi, they received the priest office, have commandment to take tithes of the people according to the law, that is, of their brethren, through these though these have come out of the loins of Abraham. Okay, so this idea in this passage here, I'll read it from the New American Standard here, verse 5. And those indeed of the sons of Levi who received the priest office have commandment in the law to collect 1/10 from the people, that is, from their brethren, although these are descended from Abraham. So, there's in the law that the Levites are supposed to collect the tithe, is the point here. So, not all the sons of Levi were priests. Only those from the family of Aaron were given the priest office. They alone had the right to tithe the people according to the commandment or law of God. So, to tithe the people means to take tithes from the people. They had the right and the obligation to do so, according to the commandment and law of Moses. Now, the right to collect tithe involves a certain authority, right? As much as we hate to say it, the IRS has certain authority. Boo, boy, it got quiet. Boy, I brought up a dirty word in here. So, so there is a certain amount of authority vested in the Levites as they have there, just as we have authority over us in that same way now. And so, but this is different though. The right to collect tithes involves a certain authority, and in this situation, there's a spiritual superiority over their brethren in that they've been given this responsibility. So all Israelites were equally sons of Abraham, but God had stipulated that the Aaronic Levites would collect the tithes. So what about Melchizedek's authority? So there's authority vested in the Levites, but what about Melchizedek? Again, notice he's setting up the contrast. Levites are very important, but not as important as Melchizedek. That's his point. But he whose genealogy is not counted from them took tithes of Abraham. You see what he's doing now? Melchizedek obviously was not a Levite because he lived long before Levi was born. That's not hard to figure out. Yet he accepted on behalf of God tithes from Abraham. So by offering tithes, Abraham thus recognized the priestly greatness of Melchizedek. And so that's the important thing here. So now we have a blessing that takes place. So now the tithes are given, and then there's a blessing that's given. So there's this give and take here in this moment. And so in verses 6 and 7, but the one whose genealogy is not traced from them collected a tenth from Abraham and blessed the one who had the promises. But without any dispute, the lesser is blessed by the greater. So that the higher status of Melchizedek was permanent is indicated by the two verbs in this verse. Melchizedek responded to Abraham's tithes by pronouncing a blessing on him. The blessing was an official pronouncement coming from one properly authorized that actually bestows something upon its recipient. So this is more than a verbal expression of goodwill. This is more than just like, hey man, thanks, appreciate it, God bless you. There's more than that going on here. By this act, Melchizedek showed the kind of priest that he was. He was so high in standing with God that he could bless the man who already had received special promises from God. So the promise that was, how significant is the promise that was made to Abraham? How significant in the scope of things? I mean, can you think of, you and I are fulfillment of that promise. We wouldn't be here right now if that promise wasn't made to Abraham, that all the nations of the world would be blessed in him. That's us. We are spiritual children of Abraham. We can call him Father Abraham. And so that promise is so significant, but Melchizedek's better. You see, again, this is the whole point of what he's doing here. Melchizedek's better. That the higher status of Melchizedek was permanent is indicated by the two verbs. By this act, Melchizedek showed the kind of priest he was. He was so high in standing with God that he could bless the man who already had received the special promises. All right, what about the significance of this blessing? So by blessing Abraham, Melchizedek positioned himself as the designated spiritual superior of Abraham. It is universally recognized that he who blesses is greater than he who is blessed. It is true that men are said to bless God. Now, have you heard this, that we're to bless God? That's different. But that is only referring to our praise. When Melchizedek blessed Abraham, he was acting as an agent for God, and his blessing virtually had the force of a prediction. And so there's something really interesting happening here in this and what is being explained. Now, in verse 8, it says this, and in this case, mortal men receive tithes, but in that case, one receives them, of whom it is witnessed that he lives on. As so to speak, through Abraham, even Levi, who received tithes, paid tithes. For he was still in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. So, there's this idea that there's no successor in office. So, Levitical succession of priests. Now, this is the idea then, the superior... The idea here is that men that die or dying are mortal men. The superiority of Melchizedek over Abraham includes his superiority over all the priests who were descended from Abraham through Levi. So every time there was a priest that started with Aaron and his sons and all the way down through, we know for a fact they all what? They're dead. Right? They all died. And so there's not one who lives on. Levitical priests were constantly dying and had to be replaced by others. So again, here's the contrast that's being laid out. So this indicates the inferiority of the Levitical priesthood as compared to that of Melchizedek. Now we need to ask this question. Does that mean that that what was happening with the line of Aaron and the Levites and the work that they did, was it just junk? Did not count for nothing? Was it important still? Sure. Represented primarily on the, am I saying it? I'm trying to say this right. Yom Kippur. Am I saying that right? The right one? Yom Kippur. Is that someone double check me on this. That, I believe, is the Jewish name for what? Anybody know? I think I'm saying it right. Harvest? I think it's Y-O-M, one word, and Kippur, K-I-P-P-U-R. That their main holiday? I think so. Am I saying that right? Anybody got your Googler working? Is that what it is? Did you look it up? Yeah, that's what I thought. The Day of Atonement. Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Was that a big deal? Yeah, big deal, right? So, I mean, that's when we talk about the high priest entering once a year into the Holy of Holies with the blood, first for himself and then for the nation, in order to make atonement, to make sure that everybody's good, that has the opportunity to respond again, to respond to this offer of grace. It's by faith, grace through faith, that they have a opportunity to respond to this atoning sacrifice that was being made. And so the work of the high priest and the priesthood was very significant. And when they were doing their job, it was an important thing. Now, did the priesthood always do their job? No. I mean, a lot of times they were what? They were what? Oh, yeah. Nadab and Abihu, right? Those two knuckleheads? Yeah. So we see the priesthood throughout. Sometimes they were functioning as they should, and when they didn't, it was a very bad thing for the spiritual health of the country, of the nation. So the priesthood had a huge responsibility. So we don't want to minimize like the Levitical priesthood was nothing. It was very, very important. It was great. That's the whole idea here, representing in Abraham and what would eventually happen through great-grandson Levi and then Aaron. This is a big deal, but still, Melchizedek's greater.
Well, they had that. They were required once a year for the high priest to go in for their sins to be rolled forward, weren't they?
Yes, yeah. So this is a very important thing, and not to mention all the other things that take place on a daily basis. We're talking about that, but still there were other things within the law that was very important, and the priests were a lifeline for people. And sometimes they were on the take, right? And they would do things that weren't good, and so. But this is very important. The idea here is once again that Melchizedek priesthood is greater. So with the Levitical priests, were constantly dying, had to be replaced. And so this indicates the inferiority of the Levitical priesthood as compared to that of Melchizedek. Now, what about the Melchizedek system superior? Well, his death is not recorded. The only statement made about him is what? That he was there. He was alive. We don't know where he come from, and we don't know what happened to him, but we know that he was alive. Now, he lives. That does not mean that Melchizedek still lives physically. He'd be really old. Really old. Now, his royal priesthood was in no way affected by his death. So his priesthood lived on because it was a type that would be fulfilled in Christ. So this is what makes Melchizedek a proper picture of Christ. Centuries later, David spoke of the order of Melchizedek in Psalm 110 and verse 4. Someone look that up real quick just to see what it says. So now we have David, one of our Mount Rushmore fellows, saying something about Melchizedek as well. Someone have Psalm 110 verse 4?
Yeah.
Go for it.
The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek.
Yeah, so this idea, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. Now, we said that David was a king and prophet. So we know, was anything that David wrote have anything to do with Christ? I mean, we saw a lot of times when we did our study in Psalms, and holy moly, all the stuff about Jesus that was in the book of Psalms, and David wrote a lot of it. And this is one of those that he's reaffirming this idea that was established with Abraham, and then this is where it really starts to get real on the timeline. So we're a number of centuries down the line from Abraham and Melchizedek, and now we're in David, and he writes, "You're a priest forever in the line of Melchizedek." Is he talking about himself or some other? Because he's not a priest. So this is prophetic writing that he's got going on here. He's talking about Jesus would be this one. And so here we have a messianic prediction by David in Psalm 110, verse 4, that he would be a priest forever in the line of Melchizedek. So that's pretty cool. And then we have the writer of Hebrews kind of bringing this all together for us way after the fact. So Christ did come. He did establish himself as high priest. He did his work that we're going to read about, where he did atone for sins in a once-for-all fashion, which we're getting ready to come up on those chapters, by the way, which is some of the best in the whole book. And so now we have this. So Melchizedek doesn't live on, but his royal priesthood was not affected by his death. This is what makes Melchizedek the proper picture of Christ. Centuries later, David spoke of the order of Melchizedek. The order of Melchizedek. This implies that the priesthood which Melchizedek was the first priest was still in existence. It is a priesthood that was still alive in the person of Christ, and that's how it's eternal. So Levi here, right? Levi paid tithes. Well, no, he didn't. Levites don't pay tithes. They collect them. Levites did?
The priest did. From the tithes, they paid tithes. I just read that.
Okay. Is that what he's talking about? Here we have, well, we could check on that and see if that's true.
Even Levi who received tithes paid tithes through Abraham, so to speak.
Okay, through Abraham, so to speak. So how did Levi pay tithes? What was the way? Again, awkward. He's present.
In the loins.
Yeah. He's present there because of great-grandpa. He's there potentially, and who would become Isaac and Jacob and then Levi. So the way that he's present, and so through Abraham, he's paying tithes, is the point he's making. And that's an interesting thing that for the author here to reason this out is interesting, to be the one who kind of figured out, well, Levi was there in a sense. And so that's what we see here. Levi pays, and so to say, through Abraham, even Levi who received tithes has paid tithes. Now, here we have the climax of the line of thinking that our writer has been developing in this chapter. So this is the whole point he's been trying to make. So to say means something like to use the right word, to use a strong expression, or to speak out freely. This phrase is used to lessen the impact of this startling statement. So Levi received tithes only through the Aaronic priesthood, which consisted of his descendants. In a similar manner, Levi paid tithes. And that is the explanation, again, is found in verse 10. In verse 10, for he was not yet in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. Levi is viewed as being present in the loins of his great-grandfather Abraham. Now, all Israelites were subjected under the Mosaic law to the Levitical priesthood, yet Levi himself, through Abraham, gave tithes to Melchizedek. So the point here is, thus, Levi, in essence, recognized the superior position of the Melchizedek priesthood. he and the priesthood that descended from him submitted to the priesthood of Melchizedek. And so that takes us to this section here, that this whole section of verses 7, 1 through 10, and what he wanted to say back here earlier before he was getting on them was to make this point. And it is a little deep to try to understand that what he's getting at, but it does make sense. And his overall purpose for this book was to establish that Jesus is greater. So we have two things here. Jesus and Melchizedek versus Aaron and Levi and that whole thing over here. And Jesus is greater than. So don't go back to this because it's not going to work anymore that way. Okay, so we're done a little bit early. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts?
I was reading the Numbers.
Yeah.
Moreover, you shall speak to the Levites and say to them, when you take from the sons of Israel the tithe which I have given you from them for your inheritance, then you shall present an offering from it to the Lord, a tithe of the tithe.
Okay, that's good.
I knew I just read that.
That's good. All right, anyone else? Any thoughts, questions, comments? Okay, well, next week we'll pick up with verse 11, and we're going to talk about Christ's priesthood anticipated, and we'll have a new lesson for you there. All right, so a couple announcements before we get into prayer requests. We are 99.5% done with all the doulos schedules. So we just got to make a couple minor corrections and get some things ironed out. So this Sunday morning and evening, we'll be handing out all the schedules and the whole. If you want a copy of the whole kit and caboodle, like everything, like every ministry, we can get you a copy of that. The best way to do that would be email. So if you want a copy of the entire doulos ministry and every single thing, it will be in PDF as a PDF file, and I can email that to you. So just send me a text or an email, say, hey, I'd like a copy of the whole thing digitally, but we'll be printing off copies and putting those in your hand as well. So we'll be doing that, and those will be available to you on Sunday. Because the week after that is when we get into October and we start the new doulos year. So be looking for that. Also, today, we kind of put it out on social media. We would ask for your help. So some of you might already know this and some of you might not. So we're having a very kind of a unique event here on November 14th and 15th. We're hosting here at the church building. And so we've just kind of put some details to it about what we're going to be doing, and that is for our podcast with myself and Jason Cole. We're having an event called Theology Nerds Live, and we're going to have 3 different, maybe 4 different podcast individuals and groups represented here. We're going to be doing all sorts of things, fun, serious. We're going to have 3 live tapings of different podcasts that are going to happen here on that Friday and Saturday. We've got a whole schedule laid out. We're going to be doing some breakfast and we're going to be doing like a rally-style continental breakfast. The Friday evening, we're going to be having hors d'oeuvres, which I did not know how to spell that. It's really hard. If anybody can spell that without having to look it up, I'll give you a free T-shirt. Anybody want to try? H-O-R? You can spell it? Oh, you looked at it? Yeah.
HORS-DE.
No, you're done. Is it what? You forgot something.
S-N-A-C-K.
Snacks. We're having snacks. So anyhow, we put it on social media. If you guys would jump on there and share it, that'd be awesome. We don't know nothing that I'm aware of. I'm not. This is a brand new kind of thing. I mean, there's nothing like this. When we say it's a one-of-a-kind thing, it's a one-of-a, and this may be like a complete flop. We don't know. We're just going to try it. And we have quite a bit of confidence that it will be good and that it will be useful and that we are reaching people. And this can maybe kind of extend that reach and really encourage and help people know the Scriptures better and build relationships. All those great things that happen from these kind of meetings. This one's going to be really different.